The bathroom mirror still fogs up sometimes when I'm home alone, and each time I see those 3 words appear, "Come back, Keith." I never told anyone the full story of what happened that Halloween night when I went looking for Caleb. Even now, 2 years later, my hands shake when I think about that house on Wilbur Avenue. The evening started normally enough. Mom was wrapping up her usual night shift at the hospital, and I was supposed to keep an eye on my 13-year-old brother while he went trick-or-treating with friends. Caleb had been begging for more independence lately, insisting he wasn't a baby anymore, so I agreed to track his location through our smartphones instead of tagging along. I still remember his costume, some character from a horror game he'd been obsessed with. Around 8:30 p.m., Caleb's location stopped moving at the end of a dead-end street I'd never noticed before, despite living in this neighborhood my whole life. The Find My Phone app pointed to a stick-style house at the very end of Wilbur Avenue, hidden behind overgrown crooked trees whose branches seemed to reach for passers-by like gnarled fingers. The first red flag was the front door standing wide open, letting the chilled wind scatter dead leaves across the threshold. My heart started racing, but I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe Caleb was at a Halloween party I didn't know about. The porch light blinked in an odd rhythm, like it was trying to send a message in Morse code. "Caleb?" I called out, my voice carrying through the empty doorway. No answer. "Caleb? It's Keith. You in there?" The porch boards creaked under my Jordans as I approached the entrance, each step producing a different pitch, like playing a broken piano. That's when I heard it, a buzzing sound like a phone vibrating against wood. But I couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. The sound seemed to bounce off the walls, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, getting slightly louder whenever I turned my head away from it. The house's interior smelled like old books and something else I couldn't place, like pennies dissolved in honey. My phone's flashlight gave a little more clarity to the scene as I searched the basement first, finding nothing but cobwebs and ancient furniture draped in sheets that seemed to shift slightly even when the air was still. The main floor was just as empty. A kitchen with dated appliances that vibrated at different frequencies, a living room with sheets covering the furniture, and a dining room table set for 3. On the second floor, my phone suddenly lost all service. The bars disappeared completely, which never happened in our neighborhood. That's when the laughter started. High-pitched and musical, like a little girl's giggle, but with an underlying echo that made it sound like it was being played backwards. The sounds traveled through the hallway, making my skin want to part ways from my bones. Oddly enough, my phone lit up with Mom's call, somehow coming through despite the lack of service. The screen jumped between her contact photo and an image I didn't recognize, what looked like an old black and white photo of 3 children standing in front of the very house I'd found myself in. I nearly tossed the phone across the room, at least I wanted to. I didn't, though. I took my chances and decided to answer. "Keith?" "Caleb just walked in the door. Where are you?" My blood turned to ice. "What?" "Mom, I'm at this weird house where his phone led me. Something's not right here." A heavy thump came from above my head. Then another, and another. Someone wearing boots was walking around in the attic, their footsteps deliberate and slow, each step followed by the sound of something being dragged. I bolted for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. But the front door that had been wide open was now firmly closed. The footsteps above turned into running, getting closer. They were on the 2nd floor now. My trembling hands fumbled with 3 different locks on the front door while the running steps thundered down the hallway behind me. The locks felt ice cold to the touch, and each one made a different sound when it clicked. One like a child's laugh, one like a scream, and one like someone whispering my name. I refused to look back, even when I heard breathing right behind my neck, even when a soft giggle brushed past my ear, even when small, cold fingers grazed the back of my head, I kept my eyes forward. The moment the last lock clicked open, I ran faster than I ever had in my life, not stopping until I reached home. The police visited the strange house that night after my mom called them. They found Caleb's phone on the front porch, cracked but still tracking location. The screen kept cycling through old photos none of us had taken. We were informed that nobody answered when they knocked, though all the lights were on inside. The strangest part? There was a "for rent" sign in the front yard that I swear wasn't there during my desperate search for Caleb. When they ran the address, no record of the house existed in the city's database. I never went back to that house on Wilbur Avenue, and I never asked Caleb where he really was that night. He doesn't remember anything about those hours anyway, or at least that's what he claims. But sometimes when I catch him staring into mirrors or humming unfamiliar tunes, I wonder if that's really true. Some questions are better left unanswered, especially on Halloween.
The best thing about 5-year-olds is how soundly they sleep when they're sick. April's fever had finally broken around noon, her flushed cheeks cooling as she drifted off, clutching the stuffed octopus I'd bought her last Christmas. Not quite a mother yet. Not quite a stranger anymore. The precarious balance of being a stand-in parent in someone else's story. "Sleep tight, kiddo," I whispered, pulling the door of the Airbnb's second bedroom until it was just barely ajar. The click of the latch seemed thunderous in the quiet house. Randy had left for the conference center at dawn, coffee in hand, pressing a kiss to my forehead, the feeling of it lasting just long enough to say, "I'm sorry you're stuck with April while I'm working," but I didn't mind. The Airbnb in Savannah was charming, but unsettling all, worn, talkative floorboards and well-aged fixtures with modern amenities layered awkwardly on top. The kind of place where the light always seemed 1 second too slow, and the air conditioner's hum sounded almost like someone mumbling behind a closed door. Odd vibes, but nothing that prepared me for how the night would unfold. The first call came while I was folding laundry. 1 ring, then silence. The screen showed unknown number, which wasn't unusual. Probably a spam caller who gave up. I tucked April's tiny socks into pairs and continued. 20 minutes later, while I was scrubbing dishes, the phone rang again. 1 ring, then nothing. Another unknown number. Odd, but not alarming. I dried my hands and checked on April. Still sleeping soundly, her chest rising and falling in a way that only truly peaceful sleepers achieve. The third call came as I was sweeping the kitchen floor. This time I lunged for the phone, determined to catch whoever it was. "Hello?" I answered, slightly breathless. Silence, then a woman's voice, soft but precise. "You taking good care of her?" My blood ran cold. "Excuse me?" "The little girl. Is she safe with you?" The voice was eerily calm, almost sing-song. I glanced toward April's room. "Who is this?" A soft laugh. "Someone who cares about April's well-being." The line went dead. My hands trembled as I tried calling Randy, straight to voicemail. I left a message trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Hey, it's Heather. Can you call me when you get a break? Nothing urgent." But it felt urgent. My mind immediately went to Cassandra, April's biological mother, who had moved to Florida after the divorce. Cassandra had been cold toward me during our only meeting, her eyes assessing me like I was a potential threat, rather than someone who genuinely cared for her daughter. But these calls seemed different, more calculated than jealous. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the bathroom, phone tucked into my pocket. April slept on, oblivious to my growing anxiety. The fourth call came an hour later. This time I answered immediately. "Listen, if this is Cassandra, he doesn't love you, you know." The same voice, but harder now. "Randy has a type, nurturing women who will care for his daughter while he builds his career. You're just the latest model." My chest tightened. "Who is this?" "Break up with him, tonight, or I'll come explain it to you in person." The threat hung in the air like body odor. "I'm calling the police," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. A laugh sharper this time. "With what evidence? A few cryptic phone calls? They'll tell you to block the number and file a report if it continues. By then, it will be too late." The line went dead again. I immediately tried to call Randy, my fingers trembling as I navigated to his contact. Voicemail again. This time I didn't bother trying to sound calm. Randy, someone keeps calling me a woman. She's making threats about April and me. Call me back as soon as you can. I checked the doors and windows, confirming each lock was secured. Then I sat in the living room, positioned where I could see both the front door and the hallway to April's room. My phone lay on the coffee table, screen up, simultaneously hoping for and dreading the next call. It came 45 minutes later. "What do you want from me?" I demanded as soon as I answered. "I told you what I want." The woman's voice was colder now. "Leave him. Tonight. I've been patient for years. I won't be patient anymore." "Who are you?" My voice cracked despite my best efforts. "Ask Randy about Wisconsin. About the girl who loved him too much." Something shifted in her tone. "You have until morning. If you're still there when the sun rises, I'll come introduce myself." The call ended. I immediately tried Randy again. Nothing. I Googled Randy Mitchell, Wisconsin stalker, but found nothing useful. The Airbnb suddenly felt exposed. With too many windows and not enough security, I considered packing up April and leaving. But where would we go? A hotel? And what if Randy came back to find us gone? The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the living room floor. April coughed and called for water. I brought her a cup, checked her temperature, and tucked her back in. Her innocent trust made my chest ache. I wouldn't let anything happen to her. As darkness fell, I moved through the house, turning on every light. I found a baseball bat in the hallway closet, probably left by the Airbnb owner, and kept it close. My phone remained silent, but the threat echoed in my mind. "I'll come introduce myself." At 9:30 p.m., I tried Randy one last time. Voicemail again. I texted him, "Emergency. Call me ASAP." By 10 p.m., the house felt like a cage. I sat on the couch, baseball bat across my lap, jumping at every sound. At 10:45 p.m., the doorknob rattled. I froze, gripping the bat so tightly my knuckles turned white. The rattling continued, more insistent now. My breathing came in short, sharp bursts as I stood, moving silently toward the door. Through the peephole, I could see a dark figure on the porch, partially obscured by shadows. The doorknob turned again, and I raised the bat, positioning myself to swing if the door opened. My phone was in my other hand, 911 already dialed, thumb hovering over call. The lock clicked and the door swung open. Randy stood there, conference lanyard still around his neck, looking bewildered at the sight of me poised to strike. "Heather! What the hell?" The bat clattered to the floor as relief flooded through me. I collapsed against Randy, words pouring out between gasping breaths. The calls, the threats, the woman who knew about April, who wanted me gone, who mentioned Wisconsin. Randy's face drained of color. He closed and locked the door, then checked all the windows before sitting me down on the couch. "I had a stalker in college," Randy explained, his voice hollow. "Melissa. We dated for 3 months, but when I tried to break it off, she wouldn't accept it. Notes under my door, showing up wherever I went, calling at all hours. That's why I transferred schools my junior year. That's why I moved to Georgia after graduation. She couldn't find me anymore." "Could she have found you now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Randy shook his head. "I haven't heard from her in 10 years. I changed my number, my email, even my social media accounts. I'm not even listed as attending this conference. I'm just here supporting my boss's presentation." A terrible silence settled between us. If possibly not Melissa, if not Cassandra, then who? Maybe it was just some random creep who got our number, Randy suggested, but his eyes betrayed his doubt. She knew April's name, I reminded him. She knew about Wisconsin. Randy squeezed my hand. Try to get some sleep. I'll stay up and keep watch. I nodded, exhausted from fear and adrenaline. As I settled into bed, I heard Randy dragging a chair to position it facing the front door. He'd be there all night, watching, waiting. My phone remained silent for the rest of the night. No more calls, no more threats. But as I drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. The woman had said, "I've been patient for years." How long had she been watching? And what would happen when her patience finally ran out?
Norman, my roommate, and I had learned about Paul Everhart's death the previous week through campus alerts. Apparent overdose in East Hall. I didn't know Paul well. Just a quiet guy from my statistics and philosophy classes who asked thoughtful questions and always wore the same faded Radiohead shirt. The campus mourned briefly. Counseling hours extended. Professors postponed exams. By Wednesday, a week after Paul's death, life was returning to normal. That night, Norman and I were playing video games when my phone lit up. Paul Everhart. Norman saw my expression. "Dude, what's wrong?" I showed him the screen. The phone continued vibrating on the coffee table. "Answer it," Norman whispered. The call stopped before I could move. "That wasn't funny," I finally managed. "I didn't do anything," Norman protested. "Maybe it's Paul's parents using his phone, or campus police." The explanation made sense, but dread still crawled up my spine. The second call came at 3:17 a.m., the same time Paul was pronounced dead a week earlier. This time, disoriented from sleep, I answered. "Hello?" Silence. "Hello?" I repeated, breathing, soft, steady. Then a voice I recognized immediately. "Joe Stockstill," Paul Everhart's voice, the slight drawl, the way his pitch rose at the end of sentences. "Who is this?" my voice cracked. "This isn't funny." "Joe Stockstill," Paul's voice repeated, more insistent. "Who the hell is Joe Stockstill?" I demanded. The line went dead. A morning of searching yielded nothing. No Joe Stockstill in the campus directory. No Joe Stockstill in Paul's social media. The name existed only as words spoken by a dead man's voice in the middle of the night. "This is seriously messed up," Norman said, pacing our kitchen. "Someone's playing a sick joke." "But how did they get Paul's voice so perfect?" I asked. "It wasn't just someone doing an impression, it was him." Norman stopped pacing. "There's that AI voice stuff, right? Where they can clone voices. The technology existed, but who would target me specifically? Paul and I weren't close." That evening, my phone rang again. Paul Everhart's name flashed on the screen. Norman and I exchanged glances. I put the call on speaker. "Hello? Joe Stockstill." Paul's voice came immediately, now tinged with urgency. "Who is Joe Stockstill?" I demanded. "Why do you keep calling me?" A pause. The sound of breathing faster now. It wasn't a typical overdose. Paul's voice was hushed, desperate. There was foul play. The line went dead. Officer Reeves at Campus Police wasn't impressed by our story. "Paul Everhart's phone has been in our evidence locker since the night he died," Officer Reeves confirmed after checking. "It hasn't been touched." "Then how?" "Caller ID spoofing," Officer Reeves explained. "And voice cloning technology. It's sophisticated, but it exists." "But why would someone do this?" Norman pressed. "And who the hell is Joe Stockstill?" Officer Reeves typed the name into a computer. "No one by that name enrolled here." "And what about the foul play comment?" I asked. "Paul's death was ruled an overdose, right?" Officer Reeves's expression turned guarded. "The investigation is ongoing. That's all I can say." Sleep evaded me that night. I expanded my search to local news. Nothing under Stockstill. But under Stockstill Joseph, I found a short article from 2 years ago. "Local man arrested on drug charges." The mugshot showed a gaunt face with hollow eyes. My phone buzzed. Text from Norman. "Paul's roommate said Paul was acting paranoid before he died. The night Paul died, he overheard Paul arguing with someone on the phone. Paul kept saying a name that sounded like Stock. The pieces were starting to fit. Joseph Stockstill. Local drug dealer. Had Paul bought laced drugs from this man? But why would someone stock still or anyone else use AI to mimic Paul's voice to point to themselves? I never thought I'd be the kind of parent who went through their kids' things. Privacy was something my own parents never respected, and I swore I'd be different. But there I was, emptying out Jamie's dinosaur backpack, looking for his permission slip that needed to be signed for tomorrow's field trip to the nature center. Jamie was only 4, for God's sake. In pre-K. The permission slip had to be in here somewhere, crumpled among the construction paper art projects and snack wrappers. That's when I found it. A sleek black smartphone tucked into the inner pocket of his backpack. My heart skipped a beat. What the hell was a smartphone doing in my 4-year-old's backpack? Jamie didn't own a phone. He was years away from that particular parenting dilemma. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. The screen was dark, but as soon as my fingers touched it, it lit up. No lock screen, just a message app open to a conversation with a number with no contact name. The message appeared just as I held it up to read, "Deliver this phone to your boss's office. Hide it discreetly in a cabinet or drawer before 8 p.m. tonight. If you tell anyone about this, just know I can easily access your child." The phone slipped from my fingers and landed on the carpet. My mouth went dry as sandpaper. I glanced around my empty living room. The silence suddenly oppressive. Was someone watching me? Listening? Jamie was napping in his bedroom down the hall. I picked the phone back up. My mind raced with questions. How did this get in Jamie's backpack? Who put it there? How did they know where I worked? That I had a boss? My first instinct was to call the police, but the threat lingered in my mind. I can easily access your child. This person, whoever they were, had already gotten to Jamie once to plant the phone. The thought made me sick. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk Jamie. With shaking hands, I took my own phone out and snapped a photo of the message. I sent it to my boss, Richard, with the text, "Found this in Jamie's backpack. I have no idea what's happening." I waited, pacing the living room, checking on Jamie every minute. My phone dinged after what felt like an eternity. A text from Richard that read, "It's okay, you can deliver the phone." What? That was it? No questions, no concern, no explanation. Just permission to comply with this threat? I wanted to call him, to demand answers, but something stopped me. The phone in my hand seemed to grow heavier, like it was listening, watching. I couldn't shake the feeling that any wrong move would put Jamie in danger. I put both phones down and sat on the couch, head in my hands. What the hell was going on? What was Richard involved in? What had I unknowingly been part of at work all this time? Questions swirled, but answers wouldn't come. Not safely anyway. Whoever was behind this had made it clear. Deliver the phone, ask nothing, or risk my son. I kissed Jamie's forehead as he slept, then called my sister to come watch him. I told her I had an emergency at work. Not entirely a lie. The drive to the office felt surreal. The smartphone sat on the passenger seat like a bomb, and in a way, I supposed it was. It could blow up my entire life. The office was quiet at 7:30 p.m. I used my keycard to enter, relieved to find the place empty. Richard's office was unlocked, unusual for him. I slipped in, placed the phone in the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, and left without turning on a light. I called my parents from the car. "Dad, I need to ask you something huge," I said, my voice barely steady. "Can Jamie and I come stay with you and Mom for a while, like starting tonight?" 3 hours later, Jamie was asleep in the back seat as I drove through the night, headed 2 states away. I had no idea what I'd left behind, what web I'd somehow gotten tangled in, or if running was the right move. But I did know one thing. Whatever game was being played, whoever Richard really was, whatever that phone contained, I wanted no part of it. If it meant starting over, living with my parents at 37, finding a new job in a small town where no one knew me, so be it. As the highway stretched endlessly before me, I glanced at Jamie in the rearview mirror, his little face peaceful in sleep, unaware that his world had just been uprooted. "It's going to be okay, buddy," I whispered, more to convince myself than him. "We'll figure this out." But deep down I knew there were some questions I might never have answers to. And maybe, just maybe, that was for the best. So this weird thing happened to me yesterday, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'm not even sure if I should be worried or if I'm just being paranoid. I was taking the 37 bus home from work like I do every weekday. It was packed because of the rain, and I was lucky to get a seat near the back. The woman next to me got off at Westlake, and after she left, I noticed a phone in the crack between the seats. It was just a regular Android phone with a black case, nothing fancy. I picked it up thinking I'd give it to the bus driver, but then the screen lit up with a text notification. The message preview just said, "Is anyone there? If you found this phone, please respond. Emergency." I know I probably should have just given it to the driver, but I thought maybe someone was in actual trouble, so I swiped to open the message. There were dozens of texts from this same number going back a few weeks, all of them increasingly desperate. Texts like, "Please tell me where you are. We're all worried sick. The police aren't taking this seriously. Just let us know you're alive." The most recent one was from just minutes ago. If someone else is reading this, please help. My sister's been missing for 3 weeks. This phone is the only connection we have left. Against my better judgment, I replied that I'd found the phone on the bus. Immediately got a response asking where exactly, which bus route, what time. Then they sent a picture of a young woman, maybe mid-20s. "This is her. Have you seen her?" I hadn't seen the woman, but something about the photo seemed off. When I looked closer, I realized it was one of those prompt-generated faces. The earrings didn't match. The hair looked weird at the edges. I Googled the area code of the number. It was from some small town in Idaho I'd never heard of. The texts kept coming. "Please take the phone to the police." Then, "Actually, no, not the police." Then, "There's a reward if you meet me to return it." By this point, I was at my stop. I decided maybe I should just turn the phone off and take it to the transit lost and found the next day. But when I tried to power it down, a location tracking app was running. It had been tracking my entire bus route. I left the phone on a bench at the bus stop and got the hell out of there. Blocked the number on my own phone, too. This morning, I walked by that same bench on my way to work. The phone was gone. Am I being paranoid, or was this some kind of scam? Or worse?
Follow Vindistrict Talks for weekly stories.